you ever walked into a room and felt instantly judged before you even opened your mouth? The sentence lands like a slap. Not loud, not shouted,
Seat
just
1A.
sharp enough to make the
Perfect.
people in line turn their heads.
This is completely unacceptable.
Economy is in the
Sir,
back.
please calm
Rebecca
down.
Parker
Sir,
says
we
it
are
with a
handling
polite
this.
smile
I want the
that doesn't
captain.
reach her eyes. 29 years old, 3 years working gate assignments at John F. Kennedy International Airport tonight, already soured by 4 delayed flights and a system outage that left half the terminal without working screens. One manicured finger taps the counter. Pink nail slow rhythm impatient. Zone 4 boards in about 20 minutes. Please step aside so our priority passengers can get through. For a moment, the woman standing in front of her does not move. Rain pounds against the glass wall of Terminal 4. The sound is heavy, constant like a drum line outside the building. Beyond the glass runway lights smear across wet asphalt. Taxiing jets move through fog like giant shadows. Inside, the air smells like burnt coffee and damp coats. The woman in the gray hoodie finally lifts her eyes. Victoria Hayes is 38 years old. She is tall enough to command space, but stands with the relaxed stillness of someone who has nothing to prove. Her hoodie is slate gray cashmere. The fabric soft and expensive to anyone who knows what they're looking at. Her hair is pulled into a loose bun that suggests she slept very little, which is true. She has not slept in nearly 30 hours. San Francisco negotiations. Lawyers arguing in 3 languages over a semiconductor company acquisition that will reshape half the technology market within 5 years. Silicon Valley boardrooms. Stale sandwiches at 2 in the morning, red-eye flight back to New York this morning, and now another flight west to Los Angeles in less than an hour. But none of that is visible here. Here she looks like a tired traveler. The sneakers are white leather minimalist, the kind that cost $400, but look like something bought at a discount store. The weekender bag resting beside her foot is vintage Hermes, but the leather is worn enough to pass for second-hand. No visible jewelry, no diamond ring, no designer luggage tags announcing her status to strangers who measure worth in logos. Rebecca Parker finally glances up properly. Her name tag reads, Rebecca Parker, Gate Agent, Summit Airlines. She studies Victoria quickly. Hoodie, sneakers, no watch, no bracelet. Rebecca exhales like she has already solved the puzzle. Ma'am, she repeats a little slower this time. The way people talk to someone they believe doesn't understand the rules. This lane is for first-class passengers only. Behind Victoria, someone coughs. A man in a navy blazer shifts his rolling suitcase to the other hand. A woman farther back raises her phone, slightly curious, but pretending not to stare. Victoria reaches into the pocket of her hoodie and pulls out her phone. The boarding pass glows on the screen. Seat 1, a Zone 1 Summit. Airlines Flight 415 to Los Angeles. Departure 8 p.m. She holds it out. I am a first-class passenger. The words come quietly. No challenge in the tone, just fact. Rebecca does not take the phone at first. Her eyebrows lift in a small arc that suggests skepticism, not surprise. Then she snatches the phone and drags the scanner over the code. The machine chirps. Green light. A clean confirmation beep that echoes slightly off the metal counter. Rebecca pauses. Her jaw tightens. For half a second she considers pretending the scanner malfunctioned. The thought flashes across her face like a shadow. Then she forces a thin smile and hands the phone back. Fine. The word isn't friendly, it's irritated. She prints the boarding slip and pushes it across the counter harder than necessary. The paper slides toward Victoria. Rebecca leans slightly toward the young trainee beside her and mutters just loud enough to be overheard. Probably redeemed points off someone else's card. The trainee doesn't respond. Kyle is 19 years old, 3 weeks into the job, still terrified of making mistakes. He pretends to focus on the passenger manifest glowing on the monitor. Victoria hears every word. Her fingers curl briefly around the handle of the small leather weekender bag resting beside her foot. For a moment, something cold flickers behind her calm expression. She could end this right now. One phone call, 3 minutes. Rebecca Parker would not have a job by the time the aircraft pushed back from the gate. But Victoria Hayes has spent most of her adult life learning one simple rule about power. Real power does not rush. Real power observes. So she simply nods once and steps past the podium. The jet bridge stretches ahead like a narrow tunnel of gray steel and fluorescent light. Cold air leaks through the seams in the structure. The rain outside hammers the metal roof. Her footsteps echo softly behind her. Rebecca rolls her eyes. "Unbelievable," she whispers to the trainee. "Keep an eye on the alerts in case that ticket flags." Kyle nods nervously, but Victoria is already halfway down the jet bridge. Her thoughts move quietly beneath the surface. 6 months ago, Hayes Global Aviation Holdings purchased 51% of Summit Airlines. The deal was silent, deliberate, structured through a Delaware holding company with layers of legal insulation. The airline had been 2 quarters away from bankruptcy. Within a year, it would be restructured, rebranded, rebuilt. But tonight, none of the employees here know that. Not Rebecca Parker, not the cabin crew, not the pilot currently running pre-flight checklists in the cockpit of the Boeing 777 waiting at Gate B-24. Technically speaking, every one of them works for Victoria Hayes. She reaches the aircraft door. A warm wash of conditioned air spills out into the jet bridge. Inside the cabin, cream leather seats glow under soft amber lighting. Walnut paneling. 8 first-class suites arranged in perfect symmetry. The scent of citrus cleaner and champagne lingers faintly in the air. Standing near the galley is the purser, Sarah Chen. 42 years old, black hair, pin-tight uniform pressed with military precision. She has the rigid posture of someone who has spent 2 decades enforcing order in narrow aisles 30,000 feet above the earth. Her smile appears the moment Victoria steps inside, professional, polite. But the smile fades slightly when Sarah's eyes travel from the hoodie to the sneakers. Boarding pass. Not welcome aboard. Not good evening. Just the demand. Victoria shows the screen again. Sarah studies it, her lips pressed together. Seat 1A. She reads slowly. Then she looks up again, measuring. "Are you sure?" Victoria's voice remains steady. "That's what the ticket says." Sarah glances down the aisle toward the empty suite at the front left of the cabin. Seat 1A, the most expensive seat on the plane. She hesitates just long enough for the doubt to be visible. "Well," Sarah says, finally stepping aside but not sounding convinced, "if there's been some sort of booking error, we may have to move you once everyone is on board." Victoria meets her gaze. "I don't believe there's an error." Sarah's smile tightens again. "We'll see." Victoria walks past her and places her bag in the overhead compartment above Seat 1A. The leather seat sighs softly when she sits. Outside the oval window, rain streaks the glass in silver rivers. For the first time in hours, Victoria closes her eyes. 6 hours to Los Angeles. 6 hours of silence. That is all she wants. But somewhere behind her, Sarah Chen is already watching. And somewhere farther down the terminal, Rebecca Parker is already telling another gate agent about the woman in the hoodie who somehow slipped into first class. Neither of them realize it yet, but in less than 2 hours, the quiet decision they just made will cost careers and possibly an entire airline's reputation. Because the woman in Seat 1A does not just belong on this plane, she owns the aircraft. And she is about to find out exactly how her employees treat people they believe are powerless. But what nobody in that cabin knew was that Victoria's mother had died cleaning the offices of men exactly like the ones who would soon sit around her in first class. 18 years ago, Victoria was 20 years old, walking into an investment firm on Park Avenue in Manhattan. She wore a suit bought from Goodwill for $12. The fabric was good quality, but the shoulders were slightly too wide, the hem fraying at the cuffs. She had an interview scheduled for an analyst position. Entry level, $60,000 a year. It was more money than her mother had made in any single year of her life. The receptionist looked up when Victoria entered, looked her up and down, then pointed toward the hallway without smiling. "Janitorial entrance is on 42nd Street. Victoria stopped. "I'm here for the analyst interview." The receptionist blinked. "Oh." She sounded surprised. "I thought—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Victoria got the job, worked 80-hour weeks, learned how markets moved, how deals closed, how power accumulated in silence rather than noise. She learned that the people who controlled billions rarely wore logos. She learned that respect was not given freely. It was taken carefully with precision. And she learned that the receptionist's assumption that day was not an isolated incident. It was a pattern, a system, one that repeated itself in boardrooms, airports, restaurants, hotel lobbies, everywhere. Her mother, Maria Hayes, had cleaned offices at Goldman Sachs in Lower Manhattan for 16 years. She scrubbed toilets used by men who earned more in a day than she made in a year. She polished conference tables where billion-dollar deals were negotiated. She emptied trash cans filled with documents that, if read carefully, could have made her a fortune. But Maria Hayes never read them. She just cleaned, quietly, invisibly. One night, when Victoria was 10 years old, her mother came home crying. A security guard had stopped her in the lobby, told her she didn't belong, demanded to see her identification even though she had worked there for 8 years, even though the guard had seen her hundreds of times. She looked wrong, the guard said later, suspicious. Maria Hayes was a small woman with brown skin and an accent that marked her as an outsider in rooms filled with people who sounded like they had been born on the right side of every line that mattered. Young Victoria asked her mother that night why she didn't quit, why she kept going back to a place that treated her like she didn't belong. Maria knelt down, looked her daughter in the eyes and said, "Sweetheart, being poor doesn't make you less. Being rich doesn't make you more. What matters is how you treat people when you have the power to hurt them." Victoria never forgot that. And tonight, sitting in seat 1A, she remembers it again. The cabin begins to fill. First-class passengers move through the aisle with the practiced efficiency of people who fly often. Expensive luggage, tailored coats, confident voices. A silver-haired couple in matching cashmere scarves settles into row 2. A hedge fund manager from Connecticut complains about the rain delay to no one in particular. A woman wearing a Burberry trench coat asks if the champagne will be served before pushback. These people make sense to Rebecca Parker and Sarah Chen. They look like first class. Victoria keeps her eyes closed. She listens. Footsteps, voices, tone. Years of negotiating billion-dollar acquisitions have trained her ears better than most surveillance equipment. She hears Sarah pass by again, tablet tucked against her hip. Her smile is turned toward a different passenger now. "Good evening, Mr. Sanderson. Lovely to see you again." The man laughs and pats Sarah's arm. "Wouldn't miss this route for the world." Sarah's voice carries the easy warmth reserved for regulars, people who belong. A few minutes later, the cabin shifts again. A heavier presence enters the aisle. Expensive cologne arrives before the man himself. Victoria smells cedarwood musk, too much of both. She opens one eye. A man stands beside her seat. Tall, broad shoulders, navy pinstripe suit that probably cost $6,000. Silver hair brushed straight back from a confident forehead. His shoes are John Lobb, handmade in England, $1,500 minimum. The watch on his wrist is a Patek Philippe rose gold worth more than most people's cars. He studies Victoria like someone trying to identify a misplaced object. His boarding pass rests between two fingers. "You're in my seat." The voice is loud enough that 3 nearby passengers glance up. Victoria slowly opens both eyes. Calm, controlled. "Am I?" The man's expression tightens. "I'm Marcus Sterling." He says it as if that should end the discussion. "I fly this road every Tuesday. Seat 1A. Victoria glances briefly at the boarding pass in his hand, then she looks back at him. "I'm Victoria Hayes, and I'm in seat 1A. Marcus Sterling's jaw shifts sideways. He exhales sharply through his nose. "Right. So there's been a mistake." He turns into the aisle and snaps his fingers. Actually snaps them, the sound cracking through the cabin like a small whip. "Sarah." Across the aisle, the woman with the Burberry coat lowers her book. 2 rows back, someone stops scrolling their phone. Sarah Chen appears almost immediately. Her posture straightens when she sees Marcus. "Mr. Sterling." She says it brightly. "Welcome back." Marcus gestures toward Victoria without looking at her. "This woman is in my seat." Sarah's smile fades just enough to signal inconvenience. She turns to Victoria. "I'm going to need to see your boarding pass again." Victoria doesn't move. "You already saw it." Sarah's smile tightens. "Yes, but..." and the gate scanned it. Victoria continues calmly. Seat 1A. Marcus lets out a short laugh. The sound is sharp and dismissive. Come on. He gestures vaguely at Victoria's hoodie, her sneakers, the absence of visible wealth. Look at her. Does she look like she belongs in one? Sarah glances at her tablet. Her finger scrolls down the passenger manifest. For a second, the screen reflects in her glasses. Row 1 seat. A Hayes Victoria. Row 1. Seat B, Sterling Marcus. Her eyebrows pinch slightly. Mr. Sterling, she says slowly, it appears your seat is actually 1B this evening. Marcus turns his head slowly. His eyes land on the seat across the aisle. Identical leather. Same space, different side of the plane. His lips press into a thin line. I don't sit in 1B. Sarah hesitates. The calculation happens fast. Marcus Sterling, Diamond Elite member, 15 years flying Summit Airlines, spends $80,000 a year on tickets, has the direct phone number of the regional vice president, gets upgrades, gets exceptions, gets whatever he asks for. Victoria Hayes, no status tag on the manifest, no history in the system, a stranger. The decision takes less than 3 seconds. Sarah straightens. Ma'am, she says to Victoria, voice suddenly colder. I'm going to have to ask you to step into the galley for a moment so we can resolve this. Victoria doesn't move. Resolve what? The seating arrangement? It's already resolved. Marcus laughs again. Short ugly. Look, he says, pulling his wallet halfway from his pocket. I'll give you $200 for the trouble. You can sit in coach. It's fine back there. Comfortable enough. He holds the bills between 2 fingers like the negotiation is already won. Victoria studies him. Her face shows nothing, but inside her chest something old and familiar tightens. She has seen this exact moment before. Boardrooms, private clubs, luxury hotels, airport lounges. The moment someone decides she does not belong. The moment someone with less power but more audacity tries to move her aside because she doesn't look the part. Her voice drops slightly. No. Marcus blinks. I'm sorry I said no. Sarah steps forward now, blocking part of the aisle. Ma'am, she says firmly, you're delaying boarding. Victoria tilts her head slightly. I'm sitting down. Marcus's voice rises. This is ridiculous. He grips the armrest of seat 1A. His fingers squeeze the leather. Get the captain. Sarah hesitates only a second, then she turns and walks briskly toward the cockpit. Victoria watches her go. Marcus leans down slightly close enough that Victoria can smell the scotch on his breath. You should have just taken the 200. Victoria meets his eyes. You should sit in 1B. Marcus straightens. His smile disappears. You don't understand how this works. Victoria's voice is quiet. Oh, she says, I understand exactly how it works. Behind the cockpit door, Sarah Chen raises her hand and knocks. Inside the flight deck, Captain David Morrison looks up from the checklist. What is it? Sarah exhales once. We have a problem in first class. Morrison removes his headset slowly. What kind of problem? Sarah's jaw tightens. A passenger who doesn't want to move. Captain David Morrison steps into the aisle with the calm confidence of a man who has spent more than 22 years commanding aircraft and being obeyed. His uniform is crisp. 4 gold stripes catch the cabin light. Conversations in first class fade the moment he appears. Authority moves with him like a shadow. He pauses beside seat 1A. Marcus Sterling straightens immediately, relief flooding his face. Captain, he says it almost laughing now. Thank God. This woman is sitting in my seat and refusing to move. Morrison nods once, already tired of the situation. Delays are the enemy. Arguments inside the cabin are the fastest way to turn a routine departure into paperwork and headaches. His eyes shift to Victoria. For a brief moment, the captain studies her the way Rebecca and Sarah did earlier. Hoodie sneakers, no visible markers of status. She doesn't look angry. She doesn't look afraid either. She looks composed. Morrison speaks carefully the way pilots do when they expect compliance. Ma'am, my purser tells me there's a seating dispute. Victoria sits still in the leather suite, one hand resting lightly on the armrest. There isn't a dispute. I'm in seat 1A. He's in 1B. Marcus lets out a short bark of disbelief. You hear that? She thinks she gets to decide. Morrison glances at Sarah Chen. Sarah nods subtly toward Marcus. Mr. Sterling is one of our most frequent passengers. There may have been a mix-up at the gate. Victoria lifts her gaze. Was there? Sarah avoids answering directly. Morrison exhales quietly. He doesn't want a scene. He wants the aircraft door closed and the engines running. Ma'am, he says, voice steady. Sometimes the reservation system creates conflicts. We resolve them by moving passengers when necessary. Victoria studies him for a long second. Her voice remains level. There is no conflict. Marcus steps forward now, voice rising. I always sit here. Always. My assistant confirms it every Tuesday morning. Morrison looks down the aisle, already imagining the delay clock ticking. The jet bridge is still attached. Boarding hasn't finished. There is still time to solve this quickly. He makes the calculation most authority figures make under pressure. Remove the unknown variable. Ma'am, he says firmly, I'm asking you to move to another seat so we can finish boarding. Victoria doesn't blink. No. The word lands hard in the quiet cabin. Across the aisle, the woman with the Burberry coat slowly lowers her book again. 2 rows back, someone lifts their phone slightly. Morrison straightens. I'm not asking twice. Victoria's voice softens, almost conversational. And I'm not moving. Marcus laughs again, louder this time. Unbelievable. He leans toward Morrison. Captain, I have a conference call in Los Angeles in 6 hours. Century City investors. I don't have time for this circus. Morrison feels the tension building like static in the air. His tone hardens. Ma'am, if a passenger refuses crew instructions, that becomes a safety issue. Victoria's eyes narrow slightly. A safety issue? Yes. So sitting in the seat printed on my boarding pass is now a safety issue. Morrison doesn't respond to the sarcasm. I'm giving you a final chance. Move to economy, or you'll have to leave the aircraft. Marcus folds his arms, satisfaction creeping across his face. Victoria slowly exhales. For a moment, she looks past the captain out the rain-streaked window. The runway lights glow like distant fires through the storm. Then she looks back at him. Your plane, she asks it softly. Morrison frowns. What you said, leave your plane? Yes, Morrison replies sharply. I am the captain of this aircraft. Victoria tilts her head. Interesting. Marcus rolls his eyes. Here we go? Victoria stands up slowly. She isn't tall, but something about the way she moves changes the air in the cabin. Calm, controlled, not the body language of someone defeated. Morrison gestures toward the aisle. Thank you for cooperating. Victoria lifts her leather bag from the overhead bin. Before stepping into the aisle, she looks directly at him. If I step off this aircraft, she says quietly, this flight will not depart tonight. Marcus bursts out laughing. Oh, please. Morrison's patience snaps. Are you threatening a flight crew? Victoria slips the bag over her shoulder. I'm making a statement. Sarah Chen smirks faintly. Morrison gestures toward the door. Off the aircraft. Victoria walks forward. No rush, no anger. Passengers lean slightly into the aisle as she passes. Someone whispers. Marcus Sterling settles into seat 1. The moment she leaves, it's spreading his briefcase across the neighboring seat like a man reclaiming territory. Finally, he mutters. Behind him, an older woman with silver hair and sharp eyes watches everything. Her name is Eleanor Wright, 67 years old, retired partner at Vance and Sterling LLP in Manhattan, 40 years practicing civil rights law. She says nothing, but she sees everything. Victoria reaches the aircraft door. The flight attendant stationed there avoids eye contact. She steps onto the jet bridge. The door closes behind her with a quiet hydraulic thud. Back inside the cabin, the tension dissolves almost immediately. Sarah straightens her jacket. Well, she says lightly. That's resolved. Marcus lifts a glass of champagne handed to him from the galley. To order restored. He grins. Eleanor Wright says nothing. She just watches. Outside on the jet bridge, Victoria stops walking. The rain rattles against the thin metal walls. The sound echoes down the narrow corridor. She sets her bag on the floor. Then she reaches into her hoodie pocket and pulls out her phone. Her thumb moves across the screen. A contact appears. Thomas Reed, Chief Executive Officer, Summit Airlines, Atlanta, Georgia. She presses call. The line rings once, twice, then a man answers. Thomas Reed. His voice is distracted mid-conversation somewhere else in the world. Victoria speaks calmly. "Tom, it's Victoria." Silence. Then a chair scrapes somewhere on the other end of the line. Ms. Hayes. "I thought you were already airborne." "I was supposed to be." Thomas hears something in her tone now. Something cold. "What happened?" Victoria glances through the jet bridge window. Outside, the massive Boeing 777 begins to push back slowly from the gate. Tug vehicle guiding its nose toward the taxiway. Inside that aircraft, Marcus Sterling is probably still sipping champagne. Sarah Chen is probably congratulating herself for protecting a valuable customer. Captain David Morrison is probably preparing to call ground control. Victoria watches the aircraft move. Then she speaks. "They removed me from my own plane." Thomas goes completely silent. For 3 seconds he doesn't breathe. Then he whispers, "Tell me you're joking." Victoria's voice is flat. "I want that aircraft grounded." Thomas swallows. "Victoria, the plane is full of passengers." "I know. It's already pushing back." "I know." Thomas presses his hand against his forehead. "Do you understand the operational nightmare this creates?" Victoria watches the aircraft roll slowly through the rain. "Yes." "And you still want me to do it?" Victoria's voice hardens slightly now. "Because if that plane takes off tonight, Tom, you and I are going to have a much larger problem than delayed passengers." The line goes silent again. Then Thomas exhales slowly. "Give me 90 seconds. Victoria ends the call. She picks up her bag and waits. Her hands are shaking slightly. Not from fear. From something else. Anger, yes, but also something deeper. Hurt. The kind that comes from being dismissed by people who don't know who you are, who don't care to know, who have already decided your worth based on fabric and footwear. She thinks about her mother again. Maria Hayes, who spent 16 years cleaning offices for men who never learned her name, who died at 53 from pneumonia she couldn't afford to treat properly because her health insurance didn't cover the specialist she needed. Victoria thinks about every time she has walked into a room and felt eyes measuring her before she spoke. Every time someone assumed she was the assistant, the secretary, the intern, never the executive. Every time someone offered her less money, less respect, less space because they believed she deserved less. She thinks about the choice she has right now. She could let this go, board another flight, avoid the scandal, protect the airline's reputation, keep the disruption minimal. Or she could teach a lesson that will echo through every gate, every cabin, every boardroom where people like her are judged before they are known. The decision isn't hard. Out on the wet tarmac, the engines of Flight 415 begin to spin. The Boeing 777 rolls slowly across the wet asphalt, its massive wings slicing through sheets of rain as the tug pulls it away from Gate B-24. Inside the cockpit, Captain David Morrison adjusts the strap of his headset and glances down at the glowing navigation display. Everything looks routine. Taxi clearance will come in a moment. The engines will spool higher, and within minutes the aircraft will join the line for departure. Another transatlantic crossing. Another quiet night over Middle America. Behind him, First Officer James Park flips a switch and scans the checklist. Pushback complete. Ready for taxi when ground clears us. Morrison nods. Good. Let's keep this one on schedule. Back in the first-class cabin, Marcus Sterling reclines comfortably in seat 1, a swirling champagne like a man who just won a small personal war. His briefcase sits proudly in the neighboring suite. Sarah Chen leans slightly toward him from the aisle, her voice soft and flattering. "I'm terribly sorry for the inconvenience earlier, Mr. Sterling. Some passengers simply don't understand how these cabins work." Marcus smiles smugly. "You handled it well. I'll make sure corporate hears about it." Sarah beams at the praise. Across the aisle, Eleanor Wright says nothing, but her eyes remain fixed on the empty jet bridge outside the window. Suddenly, the aircraft jolts. The engines drop from a rising hum to a low mechanical whine. The movement stops. The silence that follows is abrupt and unnatural. Marcus's champagne glass trembles slightly in his hand. "What was that?" He snaps the question at Sarah. Sarah frowns. Probably just traffic on the taxiway. But the aircraft does not move. Up in the cockpit, Morrison presses the transmit button on the radio. Kennedy Ground Summit 415 ready to taxi runway 31. Left. Static crackles for a moment. Then a voice responds, but it is not the usual calm rhythm of air traffic control. "Summit 415, hold position." Morrison glances at Park. The first officer raises an eyebrow. Morrison presses the radio again. "Ground Summit 415. Confirm hold position." There is a pause. Then a different voice comes through the headset. Older, tighter. Someone higher in the control tower chain. "Summit 415, this is tower supervision. Stop the aircraft immediately. Shut down engines." Morrison blinks. "Tower, say again." The response comes sharper this time. "Stop the aircraft immediately. Do not proceed to taxi." Park looks up from the panel. "What the hell?" Morrison presses the radio again, irritation creeping into his tone. "Tower, is there a traffic conflict? We're clear of the ramp." Another pause. Then the words arrive slowly, each one sounding heavier than the last. "Summit 415, we have received a code Victor Echo instruction from your corporate dispatch and the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. You are ordered to return to gate immediately." Morrison feels a knot tighten in his stomach. "Code Victor Echo," he mutters. "For what?" The controller exhales audibly through the headset. Message reads, "Executive Safety Priority. Aircraft grounded." Morrison stares forward at the rain-streaked runway lights. "Executive Safety Priority," Park says. "What does that even mean?" Morrison has no answer. Back in first class, Marcus Sterling slams his glass onto the tray table as the aircraft remains motionless. "Why aren't we moving?" Sarah walks quickly toward the galley, dialing the cockpit. "Captain, the passengers are asking questions." Morrison answers immediately. "Sarah, we're returning to the gate." Her voice sharpens. "Returning? Why, I don't know yet." The line goes silent for a moment. Sarah slowly lowers the phone. In seat 1. A Marcus leans forward. "What's happening?" Sarah forces a professional smile that now feels fragile. "Just a small administrative delay, Mr. Sterling. Nothing to worry about." But the aircraft begins to move again. Not toward the runway, back toward the terminal. Inside the cockpit, Morrison grips the controls as the tug reconnects and begins pulling the aircraft around. "Dispatch better have a damn good explanation for this." Park shakes his head. "Corporate override doesn't happen unless someone very high up orders it." Morrison feels a strange chill run through his chest. Out on the jet bridge, Victoria stands perfectly still beside the gate podium. The rain outside turns the glass wall into a gray curtain. Kyle, the young trainee, whispers to Rebecca, "Why is the plane coming back?" Rebecca doesn't answer. She's staring at Victoria now with growing confusion. Victoria does not acknowledge them. 3 minutes pass. Then chaos erupts. 2 black SUVs screech across the tarmac below the terminal windows, headlights cutting through the rain like knives. Airport security vehicles follow close behind. Inside the terminal, a man in a wrinkled suit sprints toward the gate, nearly slipping on the polished floor. His tie is crooked. His breath is ragged. This is Michael Grant, the Summit Airline station manager for JFK. He stops 10 feet from Victoria. For a moment he just stares at her, comparing her face to the photo glowing on his phone screen. His face turns pale. "Ms. Hayes," he gasps the name. "I'm Michael Grant, station manager. Mr. Reed called me." Victoria nods once. "Is the aircraft secured?" Grant swallows. "Yes, ma'am. They're docking right now." Victoria looks through the window as the enormous 777 glides slowly back toward the jet bridge, its engines wind down, fans spinning to silence. "Good." Grant wipes rainwater from his forehead, though he hasn't been outside. I cannot apologize enough. I was told you were removed from the aircraft. Victoria raises one hand. Save the apology. Grant stops talking instantly. Are the police here? Grant gestures toward the approaching officers crossing the ramp. Yes, ma'am. Victoria picks up her bag. Her voice remains calm, but something in it makes the air feel colder. I'm going back on that plane. Grant nods nervously. Of course. He hesitates. Do you want the passenger arrested? Victoria considers the question for a moment. Through the window, she can see movement inside the first-class cabin. Silhouettes shifting. People looking toward the gate. She shakes her head slowly. Not yet. Grant frowns slightly. Victoria adjusts the strap of her bag on her shoulder. I want him to watch. The jet bridge begins to extend again with a mechanical groan locking against the side of the aircraft. Inside the cabin, Marcus Sterling leans into the aisle as the door unlocks. What the hell is going on? He shouts it. The door opens. And the first person who steps inside the aircraft is the same woman he paid $200 to send to economy. Victoria walks down the aisle toward first class. Behind her follows Michael Grant and two uniformed Port Authority police officers. Marcus's smile disappears. Sarah Chen freezes. And somewhere in the cockpit, Captain David Morrison suddenly feels the uneasy sensation that the night has just taken a very expensive turn. The cabin door opens with a metallic thud, and the quiet murmur of first-class conversations dies instantly. Victoria steps inside as if she never left, rainwater still clinging to the shoulders of her gray hoodie. Behind her, Michael Grant follows with the tense posture of a man walking into a courtroom rather than an airplane. The two Port Authority police officers stay close to the doorway, arms folded, watching everything. Sarah Chen freezes beside the galley counter. For half a second, her mind refuses to process what she is seeing. You. The word escapes before she can stop it. What are you doing back here? Michael Grant turns toward her sharply. His voice cuts through the cabin like a blade. Sarah stopped talking. The tone snaps across the space with an authority she has never heard from the station manager before. Her mouth closes. Marcus Sterling rises halfway from seat 1, a confusion twisting his face into something ugly. What is this? I thought you removed her. Victoria does not look at him yet. She walks slowly to the center of the first-class aisle and sets her bag down beside the seat she was forced to leave minutes earlier. Her movements are calm, deliberate, almost surgical. Every passenger in this cabin is watching now. The woman across the aisle lowers her book completely. A businessman in row 2 lifts his phone again. Someone farther back whispers, "Is that the same woman?" Victoria turns slightly toward Michael Grant. "Please close the door." Grant nods quickly and gestures to the flight attendant at the entrance. The door seals again with a dull, mechanical thump. The silence inside the cabin grows heavy. Then Victoria speaks. "My name is Victoria Hayes." Her voice is not loud, yet every person hears it clearly. "I believe there's been some confusion about who actually has authority on this aircraft." From the cockpit, Captain David Morrison bursts through the door, irritation already written across his face. What is going on here? Why has the cabin door been reopened? He stops when he sees the station manager standing in the aisle, the police officers at the rear. Michael. Grant doesn't answer immediately. Victoria turns toward the captain slowly. "Captain Morrison, do you have your flight log nearby?" Morrison blinks, thrown by the question. What the aircraft documentation you sign before every departure, the one that identifies the lesser of the plane." Morrison glances toward Grant, confused. "Why would that matter?" Victoria folds her hands lightly in front of her. "Because the aircraft you're flying tonight is leased from a company called Hayes Global Aviation Holdings, incorporated in Delaware." Morrison nods impatiently. "Yes, that's correct." "So what?" Victoria tilts her head slightly. "And do you know who owns Hayes Global Aviation Holdings?" The captain hesitates now. He knows the name from paperwork, from contracts, from the endless documents pilots sign without thinking about the people behind them. His eyes narrow slowly. "Wait." The word comes out like a breath. Victoria nods once. "Yes." The word lands like a hammer. "I own the plane, Captain. The first-class cabin erupts in a collective intake of breath. Gasps ripple through the rows. Someone drops their phone. The sound of it hitting the floor echoes in the sudden silence. Marcus Sterling stares at her for several seconds. He doesn't move. Then he laughs. The sound is forced and brittle. Oh, please. Anyone can claim something like that. Victoria finally turns her eyes toward him. The calm in her gaze is colder now. Mr. Sterling, you paid $3,000 for this seat. Marcus straightens defensively. Yes, I did. A fair price. But somewhere along the way you convinced yourself that your $3,000 bought you authority. Marcus's mouth opens slightly. Victoria takes a step closer. You believed you could snap your fingers and have someone removed from a seat because you didn't like how they looked. Her voice remains even, but the words cut deeper than shouting ever could. You were wrong. Marcus glances toward Sarah Chen for support. Sarah's face has turned ghost white. She knows what the station manager's posture means. The police officers at the door. The captain's expression. Everything is collapsing around her. Victoria turns toward Michael Grant again. Mr. Grant. Yes, ma'am. What is the current status of Mr. Marcus Sterling's loyalty account with Summit Airlines? Grant taps his tablet with shaking fingers. The glow from the screen reflects off his glasses. Diamond Elite member. 15 years. 1.2 million miles. Victoria nods slowly. Not anymore. Grant freezes. His finger hovers over the screen. Ma'am, revoke it. Effective immediately. Lifetime ban from Summit Airlines and all partner carriers. Marcus explodes. You can't do that. Victoria looks at him calmly. I can. He takes a step forward, fury flushing his face red. Do you know who I am? Yes. You're a man who will be escorted off this aircraft. She turns toward the officer at the door. Officer. The Port Authority policeman steps forward immediately. His hand moves to Marcus's elbow with practiced firmness. Sir, you'll need to collect your belongings and exit the aircraft. Marcus jerks his arm back. This is insane. I'm not leaving. The officer tightens his grip. His voice drops lower, quieter, more dangerous. You can walk, or you can be escorted in handcuffs. The entire cabin watches. Marcus Sterling, investment banker, frequent flyer, self-proclaimed king of Seat 1. Suddenly looks very small. His eyes dart around the cabin, searching for an ally. Sarah Chen looks down. Captain Morrison says nothing. No one speaks. The officer pulls gently but firmly. Marcus finally grabs his briefcase and stumbles into the aisle. As he is guided toward the door, his shoulder brushes against the officer's chest. The movement is barely perceptible, but the officer stops immediately. Sir, that's assault on a law enforcement officer under New York State penal law. Marcus's eyes widen. I wasn't. The second officer moves in. Metal handcuffs click around Marcus's wrists. The sound is sharp and final. You have the right to remain silent. The Miranda warning continues as Marcus is pulled toward the exit. His voice rises to a shout. This isn't over. My lawyers will destroy you. Goldman Sachs will hear about this. Victoria watches him go without expression. As he disappears through the door, scattered applause begins somewhere in economy. Then it spreads. Clapping moves through the cabin like a wave. Marcus's furious voice fades down the jet bridge until the door seals and silence returns. Victoria's attention shifts to the two people still standing near the cockpit. Captain Morrison. Purser Sarah Chen. Sarah's shoulders are trembling. Ms. Hayes. Morrison begins quietly, his voice careful, now measured. If I had known, that's the problem. Victoria interrupts. Her voice cuts through the cabin. If you had known I was a billionaire, you would have treated me with respect. Morrison falls silent. Victoria takes another step forward. But because you believed I was nobody, you treated me like garbage. Her eyes move between them. And that tells me everything I need to know about your character. The silence that follows feels heavier than the aircraft itself. Sarah Chen's hand moves to her mouth. Morrison stares at the floor. Victoria turns once more to Michael Grant. Relieve them of duty. Grant hesitates. His voice drops to barely above a whisper. Both of them. Yes. Grant swallows. Ma'am, if we remove the captain and purser, the flight has to be delayed until we find replacements. That could take 2 to 3 hours. Victoria doesn't blink. I'm aware. Grant glances at the 300 passengers filling the cabin behind them. Families, business travelers, people who just want to get home. The passengers will be delayed, but they'll also witness what happens when discrimination is tolerated. Morrison stares at her in disbelief. His voice cracks slightly. 22 years. I've flown for this airline 22 years. Victoria's voice softens slightly, but the decision does not waver. You should have thought about that before threatening to arrest the woman who signs your paycheck. Grant gestures toward the door. Sarah Chen begins to cry. Tears run silently down her face, smudging the makeup she applied carefully before her shift. Morrison says nothing. His jaw works, but no words come. Together they walk down the aisle they once controlled, past every passenger who just watched their authority disappear in a single moment. Sarah's shoes click against the floor. Morrison's uniform still looks crisp, still carries 4 gold stripes, but the weight of them feels different now. When the door closes behind them, the cabin sits in stunned silence. Victoria finally exhales. Then she picks up her bag and calmly sits down in seat 1A. For several seconds after the door closes, no one in the cabin moves. The silence feels enormous. Victoria rests her hands lightly on the armrests as if nothing unusual has happened. Outside the oval window, the rain continues to fall across the runway lights, turning the airport into a blur of silver streaks and red beacons. Michael Grant stands frozen near the galley, still holding the tablet in his hand. Passengers stare at Victoria, some with admiration, some with disbelief. A man in row 2 whispers to the woman beside him, "Did she just fire the captain?" The woman nods slowly without taking her eyes off Victoria. Grant finally clears his throat. "Ms. Hayes." Victoria looks up. "Yes, Michael." Grant hesitates. His voice lowers instinctively, though every passenger can still hear him. "Without a captain and purser, we technically cannot operate this flight. I'm aware. We'll need a replacement crew." "I know." Grant glances at his watch. The metal band catches the light. "The earliest reserve captain I can get here is probably 2 hours, maybe 3, depending on traffic from Newark." Victoria looks down the aisle toward economy. Hundreds of passengers are sitting back there. Tired travelers, parents with children, people who simply want to go home. She exhales quietly. "Then we find someone faster." Grant blinks. "Faster." Victoria nods. "Where is Thomas Reed's corporate crew based tonight?" Grant thinks for a second. His eyes widen slightly as he understands. "The executive flight team. They're stationed here at JFK with the company jet." "Good." Grant begins to understand the full scope of what she's planning. "Call them." Grant nods quickly and steps toward the galley phone. In the aisle beside seat 1, the older woman who had been reading earlier, leans slightly toward Victoria. Her voice is warm, curious. "My dear, was that real?" Victoria turns to her. Eleanor Wright extends a hand across the aisle. "I'm Eleanor Wright. I've been practicing law for 40 years and I've never seen a courtroom reversal that dramatic." Victoria shakes her hand gently. "Nice to meet you, Eleanor." Eleanor chuckles softly, a sound like dry leaves. "Do you really own the airline?" Victoria considers the question for a moment. "Technically, I own the company that owns the airline." Eleanor raises her champagne glass, the liquid catching the amber cabin light. "Well then, that was the most satisfying legal precedent I've ever witnessed on a plane." Across the aisle, a businessman laughs quietly. The tension in the cabin begins to melt. People shift in their seats. Conversations resume in hushed tones. Phones glow as passengers text updates to people waiting for them in Los Angeles. Meanwhile, Michael Grant speaks rapidly into the galley phone. "Yes, I know it's short notice. No, this is not a drill. The owner is on board." His voice drops lower. "Yes, Victoria Hayes." A long pause. His face relaxes slightly. "Thank you." He hangs up and walks back toward Victoria. "They're on their way." "How long?" 40 minutes. They were finishing post-flight at Signature Aviation. Victoria nods once. "Good." Grant glances nervously toward the rest of the cabin. Passengers are already texting people about what happened. Phones glow like small fires throughout the rows. This could become a media situation. Victoria gives a small smile. It already is. Grant frowns. What do you mean? Victoria pulls her phone from her hoodie pocket and turns the screen toward him. A video fills the display. Marcus Sterling sits in a leather chair inside the Delta Sky Club lounge 3 terminals away. His tie is crooked. His face is flushed red. He is holding a glass of scotch and speaking loudly to his phone camera. I was assaulted. Thrown off a flight by some lunatic who claimed to own the airplane. The video has been live for 6 minutes. 12,000 people are watching. Thousands of comments scroll beneath the frame. Grant's eyes widen. He's streaming. Victoria nods. 43,000 followers. Grant watches the screen in horror. Marcus continues ranting. This airline is finished. Their staff is too scared to stand up to this woman. She hijacked the plane. Grant looks up from the phone. This is bad. Victoria calmly scrolls through the comments. Some viewers believe Marcus. Others are asking questions. The number of views climbs rapidly. Corporate communications is going to panic. Victoria locks the phone and slips it back into her pocket. Let them. Grant stares at her. You're not worried? Victoria leans back in seat 1A. The leather sighs softly beneath her. Not yet. Grant doesn't understand. His confusion shows in the way his hand tightens around the tablet. She looks out the window again. People like Marcus Sterling always make the same mistake. What mistake? They talk. Grant says nothing. Victoria's voice remains steady. The more he talks, the deeper the hole gets. Grant exhales slowly, but the public only sees his side right now. For the moment. Victoria reaches into her bag and pulls out a thin laptop. She opens it on the tray table. The screen glows to life. What we need is evidence. Grant nods slowly, beginning to see where this leads. We have security cameras at the gate. Victoria smiles faintly. And inside the aircraft. Grant's eyebrows shoot up. Inside, Victoria types quickly, her fingers moving across the keyboard with the efficiency of someone who has spent decades commanding boardrooms through email at 3 in the morning. Every Summit long-haul aircraft has entry security cameras. Anti-terror monitoring mandated by TSA and FAA regulations after 2001. Grant realizes where this is going. You're going to release the footage. Victoria continues typing. Yes. Grant watches her for a moment. His voice drops. Ms. Hayes, this will destroy him. Victoria pauses. Then she closes the laptop gently. That's not my goal. Grant tilts his head. Then what is Victoria's eyes move slowly across the cabin. Across every passenger who watched the confrontation. Across the empty seat where Marcus Sterling had been sitting. Across the faces of people who are already recording this moment on their phones, already typing messages to friends and family. My goal is to change the culture of this company. Grant absorbs that. The weight of it settles over him. Victoria continues. If my employees treat passengers differently based on appearance, her voice sharpens slightly, then they don't belong in my airline. A moment later, footsteps approach from the front of the cabin. A new woman appears at the cockpit door. Tall, 48 years old, steel gray hair pulled into a tight bun. Her uniform is crisp, 4 gold stripes. Her name tag reads Captain Linda Torres. She walks directly toward Victoria. Ms. Hayes. Victoria looks up. Yes. Torres nods, once her posture military straight. I was scheduled for simulator training at our Atlanta facility tonight, but dispatch told me you needed a captain. Victoria studies her for a moment. Then she smiles slightly. Do you feel comfortable flying this aircraft to Los Angeles? Torres glances around the cabin, takes in the passengers, the phones, the energy still crackling through the air. Then she nods again. Absolutely. Victoria closes her laptop. Then let's get everyone home. The engines outside the aircraft begin to hum once more as ground crew reconnect the systems. In seat 1, Victoria settles back against the leather. The storm outside the window continues, but the real storm has only just begun. 90 minutes pass. The cabin slowly returns to a rhythm that resembles normalcy, though nothing about tonight feels normal. Passengers who were angry about the delay have shifted into something else. Curiosity, solidarity. Some have approached Victoria quietly to shake her hand. A woman from row 12 whispers, "Thank you for what you did." A man traveling with his teenage daughter says, "My girl needed to see that." Victoria accepts each comment with a small nod. She does not seek the attention, but she does not deflect it either. The replacement crew finishes their pre-flight checks. Captain Linda Torres moves through the cabin with calm efficiency. Her first officer, James Park, a 34-year-old Korean-American from San Francisco, follows her lead. The new purser, Rachel Washington, a 38-year-old black woman from Atlanta, greets passengers with genuine warmth. Rachel pauses beside Victoria. "Ms. Hayes, we're about ready for departure. Is there anything you need before we push back?" Victoria shakes her head. "Just a smooth flight, Rachel." Rachel smiles. "You'll get one." As the crew prepares the cabin, Victoria opens her laptop again. Email notifications flood the screen. Messages from Thomas Reed, from her PR director in New York, from her legal counsel, from board members who have seen the news and want answers. She opens the message from Thomas first. Subject: situation escalating, stock price dipping slightly in after-hours trading. Public relations team requesting authorization to release a statement. Waiting for your instruction. Victoria types quickly. Do not respond publicly yet. Gather full video evidence from gate security cameras and cabin surveillance. Also retrieve cockpit audio during passenger dispute. Prepare files for media release when requested. She sends the email. Another message appears immediately. This one from Jennifer Martinez, her PR director. Subject: Sterling Media Blitz. Marcus Sterling has contacted CNN, Fox Business, and CNBC. He's claiming assault, illegal detention, and discrimination. His story is gaining traction. We need to counter this now, Victoria replies. Prepare the footage. Do not release until I give the word. Let him talk. Jennifer's response comes back within seconds. Are you sure every minute we wait his narrative spreads? Victoria types one word. Yes. She closes the laptop. Eleanor Wright watches from across the aisle. You're playing a very dangerous game, my dear. Victoria turns toward her. Am I? Eleanor gestures toward the phone in Victoria's hand. That man is on national media right now calling you a criminal. Your stock is falling, your employees are terrified, and you're sitting here drinking water like it's a normal Tuesday night. Victoria's expression doesn't change. It is a normal Tuesday night. Eleanor laughs a sharp bark of amusement. You're either the bravest person I've ever met, or the most reckless. Victoria considers that. Or maybe I've just learned that the truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to wait for the lies to finish. Eleanor raises her glass again. I'm starting to understand why you bought an airline. The engines rise to full power. Captain Torres's voice comes through the cabin speakers, calm and professional. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Linda Torres. We've been cleared for departure. I want to personally thank you for your patience tonight. What you witnessed in this cabin matters. It matters to me, to this crew, and to the future of this airline. We're going to get you to Los Angeles safely. Thank you for flying Summit Airlines. The aircraft begins to push back from the gate. This time there is no interruption. The tug pulls the nose toward the taxiway. The cabin lights dim slightly. Passengers settle into their seats. Victoria looks out the window as the terminal slides past. Somewhere in that building, Marcus Sterling is probably still ranting to reporters. Somewhere in Atlanta, Thomas Reed is probably fielding calls from panicked executives. Somewhere in New York, Jennifer Martinez is probably staring at her computer screen watching the news cycle spin out of control. But here inside this aircraft there is only the steady hum of engines and the quiet certainty that sometimes doing the right thing means letting chaos unfold before order can be restored. The aircraft rolls onto the runway. The engines roar. Acceleration presses Victoria back into her seat. The nose lifts. The wheels leave the ground, and Flight 415 finally climbs into the night sky above New York. 3 hours into the flight, most passengers are asleep. Blankets pulled up, heads resting against windows or folded jackets. The cabin lights have been dimmed to a soft blue glow. Only a few reading lights remain on small pools of brightness in the darkness. Victoria's laptop is open again. She works quietly reviewing documents for the semiconductor acquisition that brought her to San Francisco in the first place. Numbers scroll across the screen, projections, risk assessments, legal clauses that could make or break a $2 billion deal. But her mind keeps drifting back to the confrontation, to the look on Marcus Sterling's face when he realized he had miscalculated, to the tears on Sarah Chen's cheeks, to the silence in Captain Morrison's voice when he understood his career was over. She wonders if she was too harsh, if 22 years of service deserved more than immediate termination, if there was a middle ground between tolerance and punishment. Then she thinks about her mother again. Maria Hayes never got a second chance when she was accused of stealing from an office she had cleaned for 8 years. The executive's wallet had been misplaced, and Maria was the only person in the building who didn't look like she belonged. They searched her bag in front of everyone, found nothing, never apologized. She quit the next day because the humiliation was too much to bear. Victoria was 12 years old when that happened. She remembers her mother crying at the kitchen table, saying over and over, "I didn't take anything. I didn't take anything." The executive found his wallet 2 weeks later, in his car, where he had left it. He never called to apologize. Victoria closes the laptop. She presses her fingers against her eyes, feeling the exhaustion finally catch up to her. 36 hours without real sleep, a body that is running on adrenaline and coffee, and the stubborn refusal to show weakness. Eleanor Wright is awake across the aisle reading a legal thriller with a bookmark 3/4 through. "You should sleep." Eleanor says it without looking up from her book. Victoria shakes her head. "Can't. Too much to think about." Eleanor turns a page. "You did the right thing tonight." Victoria doesn't respond immediately. "Did I?" Eleanor looks up now, meeting her eyes over the top of her reading glasses. "That man humiliated you in front of a cabin full of people. The crew enabled him. The captain threatened you. You responded with precision, not rage. You didn't scream, you didn't curse, you simply enforced consequences." She closes the book. That's not revenge, that's justice. Victoria wants to believe that, but doubt is a persistent companion. "I destroyed 3 careers in 10 minutes. Eleanor's expression doesn't soften. "They destroyed themselves. You just made it visible." The words settle over Victoria like a blanket. Not comforting exactly, but grounding. Her phone buzzes. A text from Thomas Reed. "Sterling just went on CNN. Interview airing now. He's claiming you assaulted him because he's white. Playing the victim card hard. Board is freaking out. Please advise." Victoria types back, "Send me the link." 30 seconds later, a URL appears. She opens it. The video begins to play. Marcus Sterling sits across from a CNN anchor in a studio that looks hastily arranged. His tie is still crooked, his face still flushed. But his voice has shifted, no longer shouting. Now he sounds wounded, reasonable, a man who has been wronged. "I was sitting in my assigned seat when this woman approached me. She became verbally aggressive. When I tried to de-escalate, she called security and had me arrested." The anchor leans forward. "Ms. Hayes claims you offered her money to move to economy class." Marcus shakes his head slowly as if the accusation pains him. "That's a complete fabrication. I was trying to resolve a seating issue politely. She twisted my words into something racist. But witnesses say..." "Witnesses? You mean her employees?" "Of course they're going to back her up. She owns the company." The anchor presses. "Are you claiming this was racially motivated?" Marcus pauses, lets the silence build. "I'm saying I was targeted because I'm a successful white male on Wall Street, and in today's climate that makes me an easy villain." The anchor starts to respond, but Marcus continues. "I built my career on merit. I've never discriminated against anyone. But the moment someone with power decides they don't like you, they can destroy your life." His voice cracks slightly. "I lost my airline status tonight. 15 years of loyalty. Gone. Because I questioned someone who didn't like being questioned." The interview continues, but Victoria closes the video. She's seen enough. Eleanor is watching her. Well, Victoria's voice is calm. He's better at this than I expected. Eleanor nods. He's playing the victim. It's an old playbook. Accuse the accuser. Flip the narrative. Make yourself the underdog. Victoria taps her fingers against the armrest. Will it work? Eleanor considers that. For some people, yes. There's always an audience for that kind of story. She pauses. But not for long. Not when the truth has video evidence. Victoria looks out the window. The wing cuts through darkness. Below, scattered lights mark small towns across Pennsylvania or Ohio. People sleeping in homes unaware of the battle being fought 35,000 feet above them. Her phone buzzes again. Jennifer Martinez. We're getting killed on social media. Hashtag Summit Airline scandal is trending. Do I have authorization to release the footage? Victoria types slowly. Not yet. Jennifer replies immediately. Victoria, we're losing control of the narrative. Good. What let them think they're winning? When the truth comes out, it will hit harder. There's a long pause before Jennifer responds. You're either a genius or you're going to bankrupt us. I hope you know which one. Victoria doesn't reply. She locks the phone and sets it on the tray table. Eleanor is smiling now. You really are enjoying this, aren't you? Victoria shakes her head. No. But I understand it. Understanding and enjoying are not mutually exclusive. Maybe not. But this isn't about satisfaction. It's about making sure what happened to me tonight never happens to someone else. Eleanor studies her for a long moment. You know, most people in your position would have just moved to another seat, avoided the conflict, protected the brand. Victoria meets her gaze. I spent 20 years becoming someone who couldn't be moved. I'm not going to start now. Eleanor nods slowly. Good. The flight continues west. Time zones shift beneath them. Somewhere over the Great Plains, Victoria finally allows herself to close her eyes. Not sleep, just rest. Just a moment of silence before the storm waiting for her in Los Angeles. But her mind won't stop. She thinks about the faces of the passengers who thanked her, the woman who said her daughter needed to see that, the man who shook her hand and whispered, "You did what I wish I'd done 100 times." She thinks about Sarah Chen's tears, about Morrison's silence, about Marcus Sterling's handcuffs clicking shut. She thinks about power, about how it accumulates in small moments, how it can be used to protect or destroy, how the difference between justice and cruelty is sometimes just a matter of perspective. And she thinks about the choice she made tonight, to not let it go, to not be the bigger person, to not prioritize peace over principle. Her mother's voice echoes in her memory. What matters is how you treat people when you have the power to hurt them. Victoria opens her eyes. She treated them exactly how they treated her, with judgment, with dismissal, with the certainty that their assumptions mattered more than the truth. Maybe that makes her no better than them, or maybe it just makes her human. The aircraft begins its descent into Los Angeles. The aircraft descends through dawn light breaking over the California coast. Through the window, Los Angeles spreads below like a circuit board, streets arranged in perfect grids, swimming pools catching the first rays of sun like scattered mirrors. The Pacific Ocean stretches beyond dark blue, fading to silver where it meets the horizon. Captain Linda Torres's voice fills the cabin steady and professional. Ladies and gentlemen, we're beginning our final approach into Los Angeles International Airport. Local time is 6:47 in the morning. Weather is clear with light winds. We'll have you on the ground in about 15 minutes. Victoria closes her laptop. She has been awake for the entire flight, running scenarios in her mind, preparing for what waits below. Her phone shows 43 missed calls, 62 text messages, and an inbox that has grown by 200 emails since they left New York. Eleanor Wright stirs across the aisle, blinking awake. We're almost there? Victoria nods. Almost. Eleanor straightens in her seat, running a hand through her silver hair. You know there will be cameras waiting. I know. And lawyers. Marcus Sterling's people will be there with lawsuits ready. Victoria's expression doesn't change. I know that too. Eleanor leans forward slightly. Are you ready for this? Victoria looks out the window as the landing gear deploys with a mechanical thud. I've been ready my whole life. The wheels touch the runway with a solid thump. Reverse thrusters roar. The aircraft slows, rolling down the long stretch of concrete toward the terminal. Inside the cabin, phones begin buzzing everywhere as passengers reconnect to cellular networks. Messages flood in, news alerts, breaking headlines. Victoria's phone lights up with a text from her head of security. 20 media crews waiting at arrival gate. Coleman's legal team present. LAPD, airport police aware of complaint filed against you. Press conference zone has been established per your request. Are you sure you want to do this publicly? Victoria types one word back. Yes. The aircraft taxis toward Terminal 5. Through the window, Victoria can see them. News vans with satellite dishes extended. Camera crews setting up positions. Reporters checking makeup and microphones. A small crowd of airport employees watching from a distance, some holding phones up to record. And standing at the front of the crowd, a man in an expensive suit holding a leather folder. Eleanor sees him too. That's Sterling's attorney. Victoria studies the man through the glass. Mid-50s, silver-hair, tailored charcoal suit that probably cost $4,000. The folder in his hand is embossed with gold lettering. Montgomery and Associates, Beverly Hills. He's early. Eleanor smiles grimly. He wants the first shot. Get the lawsuit served before you can speak to the press. Victoria picks up her bag. Then let's not keep him waiting. The aircraft comes to a complete stop. The seatbelt sign chimes off. Passengers begin standing, stretching, reaching for overhead compartments. But many eyes stay on Victoria, watching to see what she does next. Rachel Washington appears in the aisle. Ms. Hayes, we have the jet bridge connecting now. Michael Grant is waiting outside to escort you through the terminal if you'd like. Victoria shakes her head. No escort. I'll walk out alone. Rachel hesitates. The media presence is significant. I know. Rachel nods and steps back. The aircraft door opens. Warm California air rushes into the cabin carrying the smell of jet fuel and dry heat. Victoria stands, adjusts the strap of her bag on her shoulder. Eleanor rises beside her. I'm coming with you. Victoria turns to her. You don't have to do that. Eleanor's smile is sharp. I've been practicing law for 40 years. I'm not going to miss the most interesting case I've seen in a decade. They walk down the aisle together. Passengers move aside. Some reach out to touch Victoria's arm as she passes. A woman whispers, "Good luck." A man nods silently, respect clear in his eyes. At the door, Captain Torres stands waiting. Ms. Hayes. Victoria pauses. Thank you, Captain. For everything. Torres extends her hand. They shake. No. Thank you. What you did tonight, what you're still doing, it matters to all of us. She gestures toward Rachel and the other flight attendants. We've been waiting for someone to stand up for a long time. Victoria holds her gaze for a moment, then nods and steps onto the jet bridge. The walk to the terminal feels longer than it is. Each footstep echoes against the metal walls. Victoria can hear the noise ahead. Voices, camera shutters, the low hum of a crowd waiting. Eleanor walks beside her, legal training evident in every measured step. When we get out there, let them throw everything at you first. Don't respond until they've exhausted themselves. Victoria glances at her. You've done this before. Eleanor's expression is calm. More times than I can count. The secret is knowing that the loudest voice usually has the weakest argument. They reach the end of the jet bridge. The door to the terminal is open. Beyond it, chaos. 40 news cameras point toward the doorway. Reporters jostle for position. Bright lights mounted on tripods turn the arrival area into a stage. Airport security has established a perimeter keeping the crowd back but allowing clear sight lines. And standing directly in front of the exit blocking the path is the man in the charcoal suit. Bradford Montgomery, attorney at law. Victoria steps through the door. The noise hits like a physical force. Ms. Hayes, did you assault Marcus Sterling? Is it true you illegally detained a passenger? Do you own Summit Airlines? Are you a racist? Did you abuse your power? Bradford Montgomery raises his hand. The gesture is theatrical, commanding. Some of the reporters quiet down. Miss Victoria Hayes, His voice carries across the terminal, practiced and precise. I am Bradford Montgomery of Montgomery and Associates, Beverly Hills. I represent Mr. Marcus Sterling. You are hereby served with a lawsuit for assault, battery, false imprisonment, defamation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Damages sought $10 million. He extends the leather folder toward Victoria. Legal documents visible inside each page, thick with text. Victoria looks at the folder, then at Montgomery, then past him to the cameras beyond. She does not take the documents. The folder hangs in the air between them for 3 seconds. 4, 5. Then Montgomery's arm wavers. The folder drops slightly. Victoria's voice is calm, clear, loud enough for every microphone to catch. My name is Victoria Hayes. I am the Chief Executive Officer of Hayes Global Aviation Holdings and the majority owner of Summit Airlines. The words land like stones in water. Ripples of reaction spread through the crowd. Reporters lean forward, cameras focus tighter. Montgomery tries to interrupt. Ms. Hayes, my client states that you... Victoria raises one hand. The gesture is minimal, but absolute. Montgomery stops mid-sentence. Last night I boarded Flight 415 at John F. Kennedy International Airport as a passenger with a valid first-class ticket to Los Angeles. Her eyes move across the cameras, making contact with each lens. I was removed from my seat because a man decided that I did not look like I belonged there. A murmur spreads through the reporters. Montgomery's voice rises. Mr. Sterling claims you verbally assaulted him and used racial slurs. Victoria's gaze shifts to him. Cold, steady. Mr. Sterling is lying. Gasps ripple through the crowd. Montgomery's face flushes red. That's slander. You can't. Victoria reaches into her bag, pulls out a small silver USB drive, holds it up so every camera can see it clearly. This drive contains security footage from JFK Terminal 4 and from aircraft registration N7794SH. She lets that sink in. Several reporters exchange glances. It shows Mr. Sterling standing over me shouting, grabbing my armrest and offering me $200 to move to economy class because he believed I didn't belong in first class. Montgomery's expression shifts. Uncertainty creeps into his eyes. A reporter from KTLA Los Angeles pushes forward. Can we see the footage? Victoria walks toward him, extends the USB drive. Absolutely. The reporter takes it. His cameraman already has a laptop out. Within 90 seconds, the video is playing on a portable screen. Other reporters crowd around. The terminal grows quiet except for the audio from the footage. Marcus Sterling's voice tinny but clear through the speakers. You're in my seat. Victoria's response calm. I'm in seat 1A. Marcus. I'm Marcus Sterling. I fly this route every Tuesday. The sound of fingers snapping. Marcus. Look at her. Does she look like she belongs in one? A Sarah Chen's voice. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to step into the galley. Marcus. I'll give you $200. Sit in coach. It's fine back there. Captain Morrison. Move to economy or leave the aircraft. The video ends. The reporter looks up slowly, his expression changed. This completely contradicts Mr. Sterling's account. Victoria nods once. Yes. Another reporter pushes forward, this one from CNN. He claimed you screamed racial slurs at him. I said nothing of the kind. The audio is on that drive, unedited, time-stamped. Montgomery steps forward, desperation creeping into his voice. This footage could be doctored. Victoria turns toward him. It's FAA-mandated security footage. Federal regulations require all commercial aircraft to maintain cabin entry monitoring. The files are encrypted with tamper-evident digital signatures. She pauses. You're welcome to have your forensic team examine them. You won't find any alterations. Montgomery's hand tightens around the leather folder. A reporter from ABC7 shouts a question. Ms. Hayes, what happens now? Victoria turns back to the cameras. Her voice carries across the terminal. Summit Airlines will be filing a counter-lawsuit against Mr. Marcus Sterling for defamation, interference with flight operations, and making false statements to law enforcement. Montgomery's eyes widen. The estimated damages for the flight delay, crew replacement, and operational disruption are approximately $240,000. Gasps from several reporters. Victoria continues, plus a public apology, on the same CNN program where he lied. The crowd erupts with questions. Reporters shout over each other. Montgomery stands frozen, the lawsuit folder hanging useless in his hand. Eleanor Wright steps forward for the first time. Her voice cuts through the noise with practiced authority. My name is Eleanor Wright, senior partner retired from Vance & Sterling LLP in Manhattan. Several reporters recognize the firm name, one of the most prestigious civil rights practices on the East Coast. I personally witnessed the entire incident on Flight 415. She looks directly into the nearest camera. If Ms. Hayes requires legal counsel in this matter, our firm will represent her pro bono. A reporter shouts, "Why pro bono?" Eleanor's smile is thin but genuine, because some cases aren't about money, they're about principle. Victoria turns once more toward the cameras. This is the moment she has been building toward. Every decision from the moment she stepped off the aircraft in New York has led here. Let me be very clear about something. The terminal grows quiet again. Even the reporters sense the weight of what's coming. This is not about me being rich. This is not about me being powerful. She looks directly into the CNN camera. This is about the thousands of passengers who are judged every day because they don't look right for first class. It makes you wonder how many people are dismissed, disrespected, or removed simply because of how they look. The silence holds. The question hangs in the air like smoke. That ends today. Victoria picks up her bag, nods once to Eleanor. To the employees of Summit Airlines who may be watching this, if you cannot treat a traveler in a hoodie with the same respect as someone in a designer suit, you will not work for my airline. She turns toward the exit. The crowd parts. Cameras follow her movement. Montgomery stands alone, still holding the lawsuit that now feels meaningless. As Victoria walks toward the terminal exit, scattered applause begins somewhere in the crowd of airport employees watching from the edges. Then it spreads. Gate agents, baggage handlers, cleaning staff, people who have spent years being invisible, being dismissed, being told they don't belong. They clap for someone who stood up when it would have been easier to sit down. Outside the terminal, a black Mercedes sedan waits at the curb. Victoria slides into the back seat. Eleanor follows. The door closes. The sound of the terminal fades to muffled noise. Victoria leans back against the leather. For the first time since New York, she allows her shoulders to drop. The adrenaline that has carried her through the confrontation begins to ebb, leaving exhaustion in its wake. The driver pulls away from the curb. Los Angeles morning traffic is already building, but the carpool lane stays clear. Eleanor watches Victoria carefully. You handled that well? Victoria closes her eyes. Did I? You dismantled his entire narrative in under 5 minutes. By tonight, every news outlet will be running that footage. Sterling's lawsuit is dead before it's filed. Victoria doesn't respond immediately. Her phone buzzes. She ignores it. Eleanor continues. But you know he won't stop. Men like him never do. He'll find another angle, another attorney, another story. Victoria opens her eyes. Let him try. The car merges onto the 405 freeway heading north toward the west side. The sun is higher now, burning off the morning haze. Los Angeles spreads in all directions, endless sprawl of houses and strip malls and palm trees. Victoria's phone buzzes again. And again. She finally looks at it. 47 new messages, most from reporters requesting interviews. 3 from board members demanding explanations. 1 from Thomas Reed with the subject line, "We need to talk. Now." She opens Thomas's message. Summit stock jumped 4% at market open. Social media sentiment shifting in your favor. But we have a bigger problem. FBI contacted our legal department an hour ago. They're investigating Sterling for securities violations. His travel patterns flagged something in their system. Victoria reads it twice. Eleanor notices her expression change. What is it? Victoria shows her the phone. Eleanor reads, then lets out a low whistle. Insider trading. Victoria scrolls through the rest of the message. Thomas says the FBI pulled Sterling's flight records as part of the assault investigation. found a pattern. Regular trips to Wilmington, Delaware, always timed just before major stock movements. Eleanor nods slowly. Delaware corporate filings. Companies register there before going public. If he was accessing those records and trading on the information, that's a federal crime. Eleanor sits back. You didn't trigger this investigation. You just turned on a light. The cockroaches scattered on their own. Victoria looks out the window. The car passes a digital billboard. Breaking news scrolls across the screen. Airline CEO releases video evidence in discrimination case. Her phone rings. Thomas Reed. She answers. Tom. His voice is tight. Have you seen the news I just gave the press conference? I know. I watched it live. Victoria, this is bigger than we thought. She waits. Sterling's firm just put him on administrative leave. Goldman Sachs released a statement saying they're conducting an internal review. That was fast. Thomas exhales. The video is everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. It's been viewed 4 million times in the last 90 minutes. Victoria closes her eyes again. And the board. They want an emergency meeting. Conference call in 3 hours. What's their mood? Thomas pauses. Mixed. Half of them think you're a hero. The other half think you just cost us $50 million in legal fees and reputation damage. Which half is right? Thomas laughs, but it sounds strained. I don't know yet. Depends on how the next 48 hours go. The call ends. Victoria sets the phone down. Eleanor is watching her again. You look exhausted. I am. When did you last sleep? Victoria has to think about it. San Francisco. 2 nights ago. Maybe 3 hours. Eleanor shakes her head. You need to rest before that board call. Victoria knows she's right, but her mind won't stop moving. Questions circle like vultures. Did she do the right thing? Was the public humiliation necessary? Could she have handled it quietly, privately, without destroying 3 careers and triggering a media firestorm? Eleanor seems to read her thoughts. You're wondering if you went too far. Victoria doesn't deny it. Eleanor's voice softens slightly. Let me tell you a story. 1973. I was a junior associate at a white shoe law firm in Manhattan. First black woman they'd ever hired. One day a senior partner asked me to get him coffee during a client meeting. She pauses. I was the lead attorney on the case, but he assumed I was a secretary. What did you do? I got him the coffee, with salt instead of sugar. Victoria's lips twitch slightly. Eleanor continues. He spit it out in front of the clients, made a scene. I apologized profusely and got him a new cup, this time with the correct sugar. And he never asked me for coffee again. But he also never apologized, never acknowledged what he'd done. And 6 months later he passed me over for promotion, gave it to a white male associate with half my trial experience. Eleanor's eyes are distant now, looking at something 30 years in the past. I stayed quiet, played the game, waited for the system to fix itself. Victoria understands where this is going. It didn't. No. It took 15 more years and a discrimination lawsuit before that firm changed its partnership track. 15 years of women like me being passed over, dismissed, patronized. She looks at Victoria directly. So when you ask me if you went too far tonight, I say this, you went exactly as far as necessary. Because quiet change takes decades. Loud change takes minutes. The car pulls up to a hotel, the Beverly Wilshire. Doormen in uniforms approach the vehicle. Victoria steps out into the California sunshine. The heat hits her immediately, dry and clean. Eleanor follows. Inside the lobby, the air conditioning is almost too cold. Marble floors reflect crystal chandeliers. A pianist plays something classical in the corner. Victoria checks in under a false name. The desk clerk doesn't recognize her, which is exactly what she needs right now. The elevator rises to the 14th floor. The hallway is silent, plush carpet absorbing every sound. Inside her suite, Victoria finally allows herself to collapse onto the bed. The mattress is soft, the sheets cool. She doesn't bother changing clothes, just kicks off her sneakers and closes her eyes. But sleep doesn't come. Her mind replays the confrontation. Marcus Sterling's face when he realized he was being arrested. Sarah Chen's tears. Morrison's silence. the applause from the airport workers. And underneath it all, her mother's voice. What matters is how you treat people when you have the power to hurt them. Victoria hurt them. There's no denying that. She had the power and she used it without hesitation. But they hurt her first. Does that make it justice? Or just revenge dressed in better clothes? The question circles and circles until exhaustion finally pulls her under. She dreams of her mother. Maria Hayes, young and healthy, standing in their old Bronx apartment, smiling. You did good, sweetheart. In the dream, Victoria is 10 years old again, small and uncertain. Did I do the right thing? Mom? Her mother kneels down, looks her in the eyes. You stood up. That's always right. But I hurt people. People who hurt you first. People who would have kept hurting others if you hadn't stopped them. Victoria feels tears on her face even in the dream. I'm scared. Of what? Of becoming like them. Of using power the same way they do. Her mother's hand touches her cheek. You won't. You know the difference. They hurt people to feel bigger. You hurt them to make things better. Is there a difference? Her mother smiles. All the difference in the world, sweetheart. Victoria wakes 4 hours later. The room is dark, curtains drawn. Her phone shows 32 missed calls. The board meeting starts in 20 minutes. She sits up, runs a hand through her hair, walks to the bathroom and splashes cold water on her face, looks at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back looks tired, older than 38, but her eyes are clear. She changes into a clean blouse, keeps the same jeans. This is a conference call, not a courtroom. They can hear her voice, but they won't see the casual clothes. At exactly 3 o'clock, she dials into the board meeting. Victoria. Thomas Reed's voice comes through first. I'm here, Tom. We have all 12 board members on the call, a chorus of hellos and good afternoons, some voices warm, some cold. Thomas continues. Victoria, the board has asked for this emergency session to discuss the events of the past 18 hours. I'm going to let Chairman Peterson lead the discussion. Richard Peterson, 68 years old, retired CEO of a Fortune 500 manufacturing company, conservative, risk-averse. He voted against Victoria's acquisition of Summit Airlines 6 months ago. Ms. Hayes, his voice is clipped. We've all seen the footage. We've read the news reports. We've watched our stock price fluctuate. Victoria waits. What I want to know is, did you consider the implications of your actions before you took them? Victoria's voice is calm. Yes. Did you consider that publicly humiliating a passenger might expose us to lawsuits? I considered it. Did you consider that firing crew members mid-flight might violate union contracts? The crew wasn't fired mid-flight, Richard. They were relieved of duty after the aircraft returned to the gate, and they violated company discrimination policies, which allows for immediate termination under their contracts. Silence on the line. Another voice breaks in. Maria Gutierrez, 49, Chief Operating Officer of a tech company in Austin, one of Victoria's supporters. I have a question for the board. Go ahead, Maria. Peterson sounds irritated. How many discrimination complaints has Summit Airlines received in the past 3 years? Thomas Reed's voice, 47. How many resulted in policy changes? Thomas hesitates. None. Maria continues. How many employees were disciplined for discriminatory behavior? 3. All verbal warnings. So in 3 years, 47 passengers complained about discrimination, and we did essentially nothing. That's an oversimplification. Is it because from where I'm sitting, Victoria did in one night what we failed to do in 3 years? She made it crystal clear that discrimination will not be tolerated. Peterson's voice rises. She also cost us $240,000 in operational losses and triggered a media circus and gained us $12 million in free positive publicity. Thomas Reed's voice again. That's actually accurate, Richard. Our marketing team ran the numbers. The media coverage has been overwhelmingly positive. Brand sentiment is up 23% since this morning. Peterson doesn't respond. Another board member speaks. James Whitmore, 62, investment banker. I want to address the elephant in the room. Marcus Sterling is claiming racial discrimination. He's white. Victoria is Latina. Victoria supplies the word calmly. Yes. So how do we respond to accusations that this was reverse racism? Victoria takes a breath. We respond with the truth. This was not about race. This was about respect. Mr. Sterling and the crew judged me based on my appearance, not my race. They assumed I didn't belong because I was dressed casually. That assumption led to discriminatory treatment. But Sterling is framing it as Mr. Sterling can frame it however he wants. The video speaks for itself. Silence again. Maria Gutierrez speaks. I move that we formally support Victoria's actions and issue a company-wide statement reinforcing our zero-tolerance discrimination policy. I second that motion. Another voice. David Chen, 45, venture capitalist from Silicon Valley. Peterson's voice is tight. All in favor. 7 voices say aye. Opposed. 4 voices including Peterson. The motion carries. Victoria exhales slowly. Thomas Reed speaks again. Victoria, the board is also authorizing full legal support for the countersuit against Sterling. And we're implementing the policy changes you outlined in your press conference. Mandatory bias training, independent ombudsman, quarterly transparency reports. Thank you, Tom. Peterson's voice cuts in one last time. Miss Hayes, you got what you wanted. But understand this, you've painted a target on this company. Every passenger with a grievance will now see us as an easy mark. Every lawyer in America will be lining up to sue us. Victoria's voice remains steady. Good. Peterson sounds shocked. Good. Yes. Because that means people believe we actually care about doing the right thing, and that reputation is worth more than avoiding lawsuits. The call ends 10 minutes later. Victoria sets the phone down and walks to the window, pulls back the curtain. Los Angeles stretches below. The sun is setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Somewhere in this city, Marcus Sterling is probably meeting with his lawyers. Somewhere in New York, Sarah Chen and David Morrison are probably updating their resumes. And somewhere across America, someone who looks like Victoria is boarding a plane hoping they won't be judged before they sit down. Her phone buzzes one more time. A text from an unknown number. Ms. Hayes, my name is Keisha Johnson. I'm from Detroit. 3 years ago, I was flying Delta to my father's funeral. I had a first-class ticket he bought before he died. The gate agent didn't believe it was mine, made me sit in economy. I never reported it, but watching you stand up made me realize I should have fought back. Thank you. Victoria reads it 3 times, then types a reply. It's not too late. If you still have documentation, I want to hear your story, and I want to make it right. She sends it, sits down on the edge of the bed. Eleanor Wright was right. This isn't about revenge. It's about making sure the next person doesn't have to fight as hard. The sunset fades tonight. Los Angeles lights up like a galaxy spread across the valley floor. And somewhere in that vast city, the story continues to spread. The video plays on loop on news channels. Social media debates rage. People choose sides. But the truth remains simple. A woman was judged, she stood up, and she refused to sit back down. 6 months later, Victoria stands at a podium in Summit Airlines headquarters in Atlanta. The conference room is packed with reporters, cameras, employees. Thomas Reed sits in the front row. Eleanor Wright stands near the back, arms crossed, slight smile on her face. Since we last spoke, significant changes have occurred at Summit Airlines. Victoria's voice carries across the room. Every employee has completed mandatory bias training developed with the NAACP, the Anti-Defamation League, and the Southern Poverty Law Center. She advances to the next slide. We've implemented an independent passenger ombudsman program. Complaints are reviewed by a third party, not by Summit management. Next slide. We've published our first quarterly transparency report on discrimination complaints. The data is public. Anyone can review it. A reporter raises his hand. What happened to the crew members who removed you from the flight? Captain Morrison and Purser Chen were terminated. Their union appeals were denied under review by the National Labor Relations Board. Another reporter. And Marcus Sterling. Victoria pauses. Mr. Sterling pled guilty last month to insider trading charges in U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York. He's awaiting sentencing. Our civil lawsuit was settled confidentially. Part of that settlement included a public apology. Did he apologize? Victoria's smile is thin. That was part of the settlement terms. But I'll say this, a private apology means nothing if the public behavior doesn't change. She looks directly at the cameras. Have you ever experienced something like this? Have you ever been judged before people knew your story? The question hangs in the air. Tell us in the comments. Share your story. Because the only way we change culture is by making invisible discrimination visible. The press conference ends. Reporters file out. Employees linger, some approaching Victoria to shake her hand. Thomas Reed walks up last. You did it. Victoria shakes her head. We did it. Fair enough. He pauses. For what it's worth, I think your mother would be proud. Victoria's throat tightens slightly. I hope so. That evening, Victoria boards a Summit Airlines flight from Phoenix to Seattle. She wears the same gray hoodie, the same white sneakers, the same worn leather bag. The gate agent, young, maybe 23, from Phoenix, smiles genuinely. Good evening, Ms. Hayes. Welcome aboard. Thank you. Victoria walks down the jet bridge, enters the aircraft. The new purser, Rachel Washington, greets her warmly. Seat 1. A is ready for you, Ms. Hayes. Thank you, Rachel. Captain Linda Torres, now chief pilot, walks through the cabin doing her pre-flight check. She pauses beside Victoria. Good to see you again. Congratulations on the promotion, Captain. Torres leans closer, lowers her voice. You know, because of what happened that night, I got this job. They fast-tracked my promotion, said they needed leadership that understood what the company values now. Victoria smiles. You earned it. Torres shakes her head. No, you fought for it, for all of us. The aircraft door closes. Engines start. The familiar hum of power building. Victoria sits in seat 1. He looks out the window. The desert sunset paints the sky in impossible colors, red and gold and purple layered like a painting. She thinks about her mother one last time. Maria Hayes, who cleaned offices for men who never learned her name, who taught her daughter that dignity matters more than dollars, that standing up is always better than sitting down. Being rich doesn't make you better. Being kind makes you rich. Victoria owns a billion-dollar company now. But the richest moment of her life was standing up for the girl she used to be. The aircraft accelerates down the runway. The nose lifts. The wheels leave the ground. And as Flight 847 climbs into the evening sky, Victoria closes her eyes and finally, truly rests. Because sometimes the quiet passenger in a hoodie is the person who owns the entire plane. And sometimes justice is just standing your ground when everyone expects you to move.